Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss red flags to watch for when dating a widower. And today we're actually going to discuss 5 specific red flags. There's probably a lot of small red flags, but these are kind of bigger red flags. And if you see these in your widower relationship and they're not getting better or improving, it's probably a sign that the widower really isn't ready for a serious relationship. He's not ready to move on. And he's probably maybe just using you to fill a hole in his heart. So we're going to talk about these 5 things, these 5 big red flags, and then again how you can know, is it something you should be worried about, or is it something he can work through and improve upon? So the first red flag is that the widower hides you from his family and friends, and I'm going to tell a little personal story here. First of all, I want to say I understand why widowers are hesitant to, especially if this is their first time dating after the loss of a spouse. I really understand why they're hesitant to introduce them to a family and friends, especially if they've been dating, especially if they're dating and it's pretty recent after their late wife's passing. A lot of it is that friends and family, they aren't on necessarily this, they aren't maybe moving on as fast as the widower. They may still be grieving. There's maybe other issues there, and it's really easy uh, to be hesitant to introduce you to family and friends. I get it, I understand, but it's a step that needs to be done, and that's actually a step that isn't that hard once the widower is really ready to move on and is really into you and is really in love with you. So let me give you an example from my life. So I started dating maybe 3 or 4 months after the late wife passed away. Didn't tell anybody I was dating, by the way. This was just a big secret. Didn't had no friends, no a family that knew. And this was back in the early days of online dating. I was meeting some women, on these very early dating sites. We were emailing each other or messaging each other, and eventually we'd go out and go out on a date. But nobody knew I was doing this. And so after I had dated a while, I actually got into a long distance relationship with a woman, sorry, that lived in Phoenix, Arizona. And we got kind of serious, and I kind of flew down there twice. And in a way, a long distance relationship for me was actually kind of a perfect thing at the time because I could talk to her on the phone, or I could kind of, but I didn't have to spend a lot of time with her, and I could kind of keep her hidden in a way. But after a while, I'd flown down to Phoenix a couple times. She wanted to fly to Utah, and she wanted to spend some time with me. And I was like, okay, that's great. And I was actually excited for her to come up, but because I lived pretty close to my parents' house, I knew there was no way that I could. There was no way that she could come over and spend some time with me. I think she was going to spend 3 or 4 days with me. There was no way she could spend that time with me and not have someone at my parents' house notice, or there was friends and family that lived in the area. There was just no way that I could, keep her hidden from the world, so to speak. So anyway, a few days before she flew up, I went and kind of told my mom. My mom was washing the dishes, and I'm just kind of sitting there talking to her. And I said, "Oh yeah, by the way, hey, there's a girl from Phoenix that I've kind of been dating for a while, and she's coming up, and we're going to spend a couple days together over this. I think it was like the Fourth of July holiday." And my mom's just kind of like, "What? You're dating?" She's in shock. Everybody's in shock. And anyway, I said, "Yeah, just so you know, if you see someone over there, that's who it is. I'll probably bring her over and introduce you." And really just awkward conversation. I didn't really want to do it, but I was forced to do it. I was forced to do it because she was coming up, and it wasn't like I lived 30 miles away from friends and family and didn't have to worry about any of this stuff. She was going to be right there, and my family was going to be having activities. So I was forced to do it, not because I wanted to do it. I was forced to. There's a big difference. Okay, you're going to see in a second. So I did it because I was forced to, and she came up, and it was okay. It was a good time. My family wasn't especially fond of her. I actually tried to spend the longest time possible away from my family. When she was there, we went out and did other things, and I just tried to keep her away from the family. So go about a month or so later, and I get serious with Marathon Girl, and it finally gets to the point, and I think my parents knew that we were kind of dating, but I think at that point they just kind of resigned themselves to maybe stay out of my life a little bit, and just kind of let me do whatever it was I was going to do because I don't think they understood it. But anyway, but then once Marathon Girl and I got serious, and I realized that there was something here, I wanted to take her over and introduce her to my mom and my dad and my brothers and my sisters and my friends and my family. There was no hesitation about doing it. And so you wonder, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference wasn't, I mean, it had only been like 30, 45 days maybe from the time that this girl from Phoenix came over and from the time I was dating Marathon Girl. So it really wasn't like a long time frame where I had time to process my grief. I was still kind of messed up on the inside. But the difference was the person. And there was something about Marathon Girl that was special and wonderful and perfect. And I was so crazy in love with her. I didn't care. I honestly didn't care what others thought. With this first girl, the girl from Phoenix, I cared what my mom thought. I cared what my dad thought. And at the time, I thought, well, it's because they're still grieving. I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to be thinking I'm dating too soon. And all those excuses with Marathon Girl, they went out the window. I didn't care if people thought I was dating too soon. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Marathon Girl. I didn't want to spend it with anybody else, and I could care less what anybody thought. And so it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't a change in me necessarily. It was a change in the person I was dating. And so that's why I'm bringing it back that if the widower is very hesitant to hide you from family and friends, and I'm again, I don't, if this is something that's hard for him to do, in a way, there's maybe a little bit of wiggle room in there, but I mean, this shouldn't. If he's like not doing it, if he's making excuses not to invite you to parties or to have, I mean, seriously, I've had women email me who say I had to go hide in the closet when some friends and family came over because the widower was so ashamed. No, no, no. He should not be ashamed. He should want to, whatever it is, put your relationship out there on Facebook and let the world know about it. And he honestly shouldn't care what other people think. Now, if he has little kids, and I'm talking minor kids here, I think it's maybe okay to be a little bit cautious about introducing you to the minor kid, maybe his minor children until he's maybe a little bit more certain. But it certainly shouldn't be. It certainly shouldn't go on for years and years. Which I've had people email me and say that, well, it's been years and I still haven't met anybody. No, 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 no. A couple months I get maybe, but years no. And I'm talking about kids here, but I mean, you should be part of his life. You should feel like you're part of his life and not some mistress that he's hiding from people. So that's the first big red flag about hiding you from family and friends. He shouldn't do it. He should embrace you, embrace the relationship, and move forward. The second red flag I see is that you remind him of his late wife, and so I get it. People have a type. I mean, I have a type. There are similar physical characteristics between Marathon Girl and my late wife. Not a lot, but I mean, they're a type, and they're a kind of there. Um, so there's nothing wrong with necessarily having a similar type, but it's different if he's looking for a specific set of behaviors or wants you to act a certain way or have other similarities as the late wife. That's a big red flag. What the danger is there is that he's not looking for you and not wanting to love you for who you are, but he's wanting you to be somebody else. So if you can feel like you can be yourself around him, dress the way that you want around him, I don't know, do your hair, makeup, anything else like that the way that you want to do it, and not the way he wants you to do it, then then that's fine. But the bigger concern is that he's trying he's really turning you into his late wife 2.0, and he wants you to act a certain way or do certain things, or he's constantly saying, hey, you should dress like this or do like this because it's something that his late wife did. So again, not necessarily that you remind him of the late wife isn't a big concern, but if you have, it's not just looks, if you act similar to her, if you got other maybe interests and things like that, my suggestion is to really be cautious, because he can because again, you want the widower to love you and want you for who you are, not for who he wants you to be or who he thinks you should be. You've just got to be able to be yourself. So if you see some things out there where maybe he's not he wants you to act or dress or do things that aren't necessarily in your nature or something you don't want to do, that's a big red flag, and my advice is to get out of that relationship quickly. The third red flag is kind of along that line, is that he constantly compares you to the late wife. And so again, I'm going to be a little bit honest here. It's natural, especially if you've been in a marriage, a big loving relationship, and you get into a new relationship. Guys are going to mentally compare different things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know when I was dating Marathon Girl, and she did things a certain way, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not used to things being done this way. I'm not used to, whatever, I don't know, cooking the noodles this way, or just, in my mind, I was running through a list of comparisons, and it wasn't necessarily that I was saying that Marathon Girl was doing it better or worse than the late wife, or the late wife did things better or worse. In my mind, it was an adjustment. Okay. So the fact that they're comparing you in their mind isn't necessarily a big thing. It's, they're just trying to adjust and figure things out. Well, you do things this way. You like this music. My late wife liked this music, or whatever. That's not necessarily that's not necessarily a big flag, because they're all going to do it. Um, what the big red flag is if he's verbalizing it, and verbalizing it all the time. So I don't know, whatever, you're sitting down to dinner, let's say you've made some spaghetti, and he's like, well, the late wife always put cheese in the sauce, there's no cheese in the sauce. Or, hey, maybe you're driving by somewhere, or I don't know, you want to go on vacation to New York or LA or somewhere, and he's like, yeah, when the late wife and I went there, we did this and this and that. And so it's the constant verbal comparisons, because of eventually he's going to stop making those comparisons. I mean, if he's ready to move on, he's going to stop making those comparisons in his head. It might take him a few months, but he's finally going to settle in and say, okay, this is a different person. I'm used to the way that she's doing things, the way that she, whatever, the way that she, the way that she dresses, the way that she talks, the things that she likes to do. And it's not necessarily a comparison. He's just gone in and accepted you for who you are. But I've had emails, and lots of emails, where the big concern is that he's constantly comparing the woman he's dating to the late wife. It's constant. He always says, well, she did things this way, and she did this, she liked this. And if he's constantly doing stuff like that, no, 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 he's not ready to move on. There's something in his mind that's stopping him from accepting you for who you are, and he just can't process it. And I'm not saying I know what the answer is to this problem, but I'm saying you need to really back out of that relationship if there's that constant comparison going on, and especially if it's a verbal one, because you don't know what he's thinking. You don't know really, what's going on inside his head, and just like he doesn't know what's going on inside your head. But when those comparisons become verbal, and he's constantly doing it, it's a problem. It's an issue. You need to get it addressed. Um, the next big red flag is that there are visible shrines to the late wife everywhere. So again, I'm going to preface this by saying, the first time you walk in his house, if you see pictures of his late wife everywhere, um, again, not necessarily a big deal, because you may be the first person he's ever brought home. He may not have been in a serious relationship before, but the issue is when these shrines don't come down. That's the issue. Is that, whatever, you've been dating 3 or 4 months, you're pretty serious, and you go to his house and nothing's changed, right? There's still pictures of the late wife everywhere. You can't go anywhere in the house without being reminded, really, that it's her house. So when Marathon Girl came to my house the first time, guess what? I had pictures up, I had stuff up. Um, you know, was there shrines to her, so to speak? Yeah, there was stuff up, but they didn't last very long. Once I realized that Marathon Girl wasn't comfortable in the house, and that I needed to make changes, I slowly started taking that stuff away. And probably, I don't know, I'd say 2, 3 months after we had started dating, she could pretty much go anywhere in the house, and the pictures had gone down. I think there was a picture of us up somewhere, like on the coffee table or something. And I tried to make it a place where she could feel comfortable. So, so if the widower's ready to move on, and again, he may not realize that's making you uncomfortable. You may need to have the conversation of, hey, there's pictures everywhere. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Once he becomes cognizant of that, he should make steps to actually go through and take stuff down. It's when he leaves stuff up and won't change things. That's a sign that he's not ready to go on, because honestly, if he has that stuff up, I mean, here's the thing about shrines and pictures and visual reminders, is that they tend to pull you back. They tend to pull widowers back into the past. And it's just kind of a natural thing. You see a picture of, a vacation or something, you kind of go back, oh, hey, that was a great time. You see pictures of people, you see things the way they are. It hinders you from moving forward. So again, um, it's not the fact that the shrines are up; it's the fact that he's not taking the shrines down that are the big red flag here. The final and last big red flag is that basically, he has a hard time communicating with you. And again, the fact that he maybe has a hard time at first communicating with you isn't necessarily a red flag. I go back. to my first days of dating Marathon Girl. Her personality, my late wife's personality, are very different. In fact, they're packed 180 degrees. The late wife was very outgoing, very vivacious. Marathon Girl is very quiet and reserved. And so one of the things I had to learn was how to communicate her, and that the ways I communicated with my late wife did not work with her. In fact, sometimes they really turned her off. And so there has to be that way that he can go in there and learn how to communicate with you and you with him. I mean, because let's face it, it's a new relationship. You have different ways of doing things, different styles, and it takes work whether you're in a widower relationship or not. But in some cases, for the widower, it might be a little bit harder because he's been in this serious relationship where he still kind of loves that person, and making that adjustment can be tricky at times. So he has to learn to tell you that he loves you. He has to learn, to be able to talk to you and say, look, this is how I'm doing. I'm having a bad day. I'm having a good day, and find out a way that he can, express that and do things like that. So he'll find a way to learn to. So if he's really into you, he'll figure out a way to learn to communicate with you. It may not be perfect, but he'll make progress and improvement, and that's what you're looking for, is progress and improvement. We're all not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, and making a mistake is fine. The issue is if we make that same mistake over and over again and not looking to address it. That's really the a big problem. So watch his actions. Watch his actions. See how he's treating you. Is he treating you the way that you want to be treated? Is he trying to make progress and to make you the number one person in his life? And you know what? You're going to have to accept things for as they are. And I guess my final pieces of advice is, if you see these red flags and they're not changing. And again, I'm not saying you see a red flag and you just turn and run away. The issue is you got to address this red flag and see if he's willing to actually make that change. You've got to give him that choice. The choice is, are you going to do things the way that you've always been doing them, or are we going to make some changes here and do things that are good for that are best for our relationship? And he has to choose you. He has to choose. It's choosing the future or choosing the past. So again, it's not the big deal if he has the red flags. Is he overcoming the red flag? That's really what you got to look for. If he's hesitant to introduce you to your family, to his family or friends, you got to say, look, this is insulting to me. I feel like a mistress. Word it how you want, but that's really what you're saying is, hey, I feel like a mistress here. I want to meet your family and friends. Okay, he's going then has to make that choice. Does he value the feelings of his family and friends over your feelings? And if he values your feelings more, you're going to get introduced. It's just like with the pictures of his late wife. It's going to be, hey, I come into your house and it feels like I'm in a mausoleum. There's dead people everywhere, so to speak. Again, have him make that choice. Is he going to choose you and your feelings, or over his feelings in the house? And so that's really what it is. So again, keep an eye open on these big red flags, or any red flag for that matter. Again, it's not a big deal if he doesn't, that the red flag's there. The big deal is that he doesn't want to change things. I'm Abel Keogh, so feel free to like or comment below. If you like this video, feel free to share it, and feel free to subscribe as well. And we'll be back with another Widower Wednesday column soon.